So I just installed a cold air intake on my 2014 Chevy Camaro SS. This is the V8. And if you have a V6, things will be a little different. The install is not hard at all. Really, if you just follow the instructions, you'll be fine. But if you feel a little uncomfortable or want to walk through, then I will do that. So the first thing you want to do is take your old intake out. You can see that big monstrosity came out of the car. It's pretty easy. The first thing you'll do is you need to take your engine cover off here. So take your gas cap or your oil cap off. Lift this off, it just kind of clips into place. Put your oil cap back on so that nothing falls into your motor. At that point you'll have a hose that goes from here over to underneath the cover right here. There's a little clip on this side. You'll turn it and undo that clip and take that off. You won't need that anymore. There's a new one in the kit. This one happens to be a kit from Spectre, but I assume the K&N, Air Raid, any number of brands, it's almost the same thing. Next you'll have your mass airflow sensor here. You'll take that off of the old one, and you can see on the old one you're looking at basically the same thing, just a little overdone. So at that point you have two posts. You can see one here and you can see one here. Those were here and here. Take those nuts off, but keep hold of them. You're going to need them later. At that point you should be able to just loosen your intake off of the throttle body a little bit and slide it off. Just pull it right off, give it a good tug, and then lift it off the posts and take that out of there. And at that point you're basically done with this thing. So now you'll have an open throttle body and you'll have an empty space here, and you'll want to assemble the heat shield. So it comes in two parts on this kit. You want to screw it together with the screws they gave you, and there's nice little lock nuts on there to make sure it stays in place. You put the tab on the inside, and there's also this rubber gasket here. You'll put that on the outside. At that point you'll fit it into the car, and you can maybe see down there, maybe, there you go, there's a tab. You want the tab to sit on the reservoir side to hold it in place. And then there's another tab here that you're going to bolt on using the old nut and a new one that they furnished you. And that also has a lock nut. I think all these nuts were 10mm if I remember right, but I actually did this yesterday, so I've already forgotten. So as part of this heat shield there's this rubber boot, and then there's a flange that your filter hooks onto. So you'll want to put the rubber boot and the flange in, and they'll give you 4 of these clamps. And so you'll put your first clamp on here and hold that into place. At that point you're almost done already. You'll grab your intake piece right here. Some of them are chrome, some of them are black plastic, and there's another boot here that you'll slide onto the intake and then onto the throttle body and tighten it down with these 2 clamps. Get that on nice and good. And then same thing over here, your 4th clamp you'll clamp on over here. And at that point make sure everything's nice and tight, held in place. You will install your filter. Just slide it up onto the flange, and it has a piece here to tighten down, and that will hold it in place nicely. These filters I noticed came pre-oiled, so later you'll need to buy some oil when you're doing maintenance on them, but your first go is ready to plug and play effectively. At that point you put your hose back on. They provided one. Goes from here again up under the cover. You'll see where your old one went, and then also reinstall your mass airflow sensor and plug it in. I should have mentioned at the start of this that you want to disconnect your battery, take the negative side off, and that way when you put this all back together your computer will read the new airflow and adjust accordingly. So at that point, put it back together. One mistake I made on the, I believe it's the 2012 to 2015. This ground is for your electronic power steering. If you don't put that back on, you won't have power steering. So despite this tower being unused, when you take your old one off, I did reuse the tower at least to ground this out and regain my power steering. So at that point, you have a new nice cold air intake. The car sounds a lot better, feels a lot better when you get on the throttle, especially around 2,000 and 3,000 RPM. And I think it just cleans up the engine bay a little bit. Really easy. If you have questions, certainly let me know. I like to answer quickly and help people with their projects. I would not pay to have this done. It's just too easy to do in a short amount of time. Thanks everyone.